So you guys aren't going to believe this, but I actually sent my horse in for training. Let's get into it.
If I do my groundwork first, then as soon as I step on, the horse is ready to ride. But boy, was I getting ridiculed from the performance,
Okay, so a little backstory on this. This is a horse named Queso. He's a 3-year-old that I bought as a started 2-year-old, and he has about 2 months of training, okay? He has a lot of potential for reining, and in my own horsemanship journey, I'm wanting to get better at reining. I have no desire to compete in reining, okay? But I really enjoy the reining maneuvers. And so I like to play around with teaching a horse spins and slide stops and rollbacks and that sort of thing. And I find that very fun. It's also very challenging to get it to the level of somebody like Craig Johnson, who I sent this horse to. Craig Johnson is an 18-time world champion, multi-million-dollar reining horse trainer. He's doing a lot of ranch trail, ranch riding stuff right now. But he is a legend in the industry, and he's one of my mentors and friends. And so I'm super excited for him to share with us today some of the things he's working on with my horse Queso.
So one of the things that I've been working on with his groundwork is turning it into some things that I can use a little bit more when I'm up there. And one of the things that I really focus on is how they shape their body up while they're going around me. I always look at it when I'm doing the groundwork. If I were up there, would I like that? If not, I'm going to change it from down here. Put some shape in it, play with their face a little bit so they learn how to give, watch their feet and do the right thing with that. And then it's mostly about the stop and the turn. You know, I don't disengage in my groundwork, you know, because for me, that disengage thing, as I advance them, causes their front feet to stop and their back feet to move. Well, as we progress, they got to stop the back feet and move the front feet. So we change things up just a little bit. And I also am going to bump them right where, you know, right where I'm going to use my leg instead of find a zone back there to drive him at. You know, I'm just going to use what I use when I'm up there. So. And your groundwork program is awesome, obviously, but there's just a couple little tweaks that I do that kind of get them the idea of what I want them to do when we start working at some next level stuff about how they're going to use their front feet, their back feet, the shape, the softness. And when he's doing it right, I like to keep my hand right here at my belt buckle. I might even stick my thumb in my pocket. That puts my hand behind his nose rather than trying to lead him out here like that. When I do that, he's supposed to stop, right? So I don't send him around like that. I get him going around behind me and keep my hand back here. And then when it comes time to quit, it'll be my idea, not his. Whoa. Cool. All right, so, and that wasn't perfect. He still kind of stepped out behind, but what I'd like to have him do is just stop with those back feet and wait with front feet, decide what to do. Generally, when I'm first starting it, I'll make the full turn and we'll be facing the same direction to stop him, you know. But now he's kind of reading the program a little bit. I don't have to make that full turn. Off we go the other way.
Do you like to use whoa pretty much every time you stop?
You know, I'm just now starting to use whoa on him. I first teach him how to stop, right? And then start using whoa. I learned that years ago from Ray Hunt. We were doing a colt start thing, and came time to ride the colt, and he said, go ahead and catch your colt and step on. And so my colt went by and I said, whoa, and he didn't stop. And he went by and I said, whoa, and he didn't stop. And about the third time, Ray said, well, how's that working for you? You know, well, not very good. Anyway, he said, stop him first, then say whoa. And I've done that ever since. You know, yeah. Teach them how to stop first. And then I can hook that word to something they know how to do.
That makes sense.
Otherwise, if I start saying whoa before they know how to stop, in some ways you could turn whoa into a negative thing.
Yeah.
You know, they hear the word and then think, oh my God, I know what comes next, you know. So that word is supposed to be a positive cue. It's a reward. I never use whoa as a punishment.
That's a great way to look at it.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of change that here a little bit, just because he's still stepping out. So now I'm taking the left rein in my right hand, right rein in my left hand, and the first thing I'm going to do is pull here, then send the front feet. Notice, as much as possible, I try to be a swiveling post instead of walking around with him. Whoa. There. Step the front end through, go again. So whenever one steps out behind, I just hustle the front end. Whoa. Hustle the front. Whoa. Whoa. So he's just learning stop the back, move the front. Okay, and that will relate as we get into the stopping program of trying to do the, teach him how to do the wormy dog, stop the back, move the front. There's a lot of times when, I can be a little more effective, just clean it up on the ground first instead of get up there and fight with him, I'd rather not have a fight up there.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get through, and maybe fight's a bad word, but if we're going to have a tussle, I want to do it from down here where I have a little more control of things, and he can read me, he can see me, and then I can get up there and translate or transfer it.
Yeah. So you feel like if they have resistance to pressure, to what you're asking, or just in general, you'd rather work through that on the ground more so than just trying to teach a horse the maneuver. You're trying to get through the resistance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's in the spin or the backup, a lot of people, they'll sit up there and struggle with the backup, and I can get, down here. And I have no problem if while I'm riding one, I think, I could step off and clean this up in 3 minutes, or I could be up here for the next hour or two, As long as I can relate it to something that I am trying to do from up there. That's why I use the stick in the rib cage, in the shoulder, in, whatever part I'm trying to move. And that way, when I get up there and I lay my foot in that spot, I should get that response.
So I was really interested to see that he was doing groundwork with him. I don't think I expected that. Now, I know Craig is a fan of horsemanship and doing groundwork and that sort of thing, but I didn't think with a horse that's already riding that he would be doing groundwork. At the same time, it made a lot of sense to me that he wants to get a feel for where the horse is at and work through some of the resistance that this particular horse has. This horse is a pretty strong-willed horse. And when I first started riding him, he would really kick out anytime the rider's leg came on. He just had a lot of opposition reflex to pressure. And I don't know if that's more his personality or if it's how he got started. I don't know. But he does have a lot of resistance in there. I've worked through a lot of it, but I know that Craig is going to challenge him to level up. And it's for me, I'm finding it very interesting what he's doing here.
I get a lot of other benefit by teaching the ground, this kind of ground stuff, especially the turn. I find it helpful. Just to even go in and clean his stall. You can move him out of the way,
Yeah.
I think it just makes a horse safer to be around.
Yeah, for sure.
When they learn these drills.
Do you think that's unique to you, or do you think there's a lot of guys that are doing the ground?
I say that. I remember, and it's worth talking about. I remember when I first got involved in the natural horsemanship and Pat, and we became friends, and I started to try to figure out what they were doing, and he was showing me and incorporating it and then tweaking it to whatever worked, but I found some obviously great stuff. But boy, was I getting ridiculed from the performance, because I'd go out there at the reining fraternity and I'd do my groundwork before I'd get on, and they go, "What are you doing? Just step on that thing. Are you chicken?
Yeah.
Get on, But I found some great benefit in that if I do my groundwork first, then as soon as I step on, the horse is ready to ride.
Yeah.
And I don't like to step on one till they're ready to ride anymore, And once they learn this drill, I can step on usually within 4 or 5 minutes, Doesn't take long. I don't lunge. I don't even have a lunge line. It's right here, is my groundwork. One of the ways now that I'm up here and trying to lighten up his rib cage a little bit, because he can be a little numb-sided, as you know. Before I bump, I'm going to take my legs away. Right? I'm going to do that first. And then I'm going to bump. Okay? So instead of putting my legs on and squeezing and trying to get him to go, that actually creates a desensitizing. And yet if I take my legs away and then bump, then he'll start to realize that I don't need to have my legs on all the time. So for me, I've got 2 reins here and I'm using 2 hands. But my inside rein is not the steering rein. My inside rein creates softness, position, and mental focus, but my outside rein is always my steering rein. And it's kind of a reiner thing. It's, you know, we always say live or die by the outside rein, you know? And so we've got to, because we are going to all go one-handed, at some point that outside rein is the most important rein you've got, you know? So like here, now I don't even need the inside rein. He's kind of got the idea. But if I need it, I'll just bump it and turn it loose. And hold him accountable for holding that position. So this part of his circle, he's being pretty good, but when he kind of leans towards the barn, he wants to drift that way. So of course, then I would use the outside rein, outside leg to keep him from doing that. But when he pushes against it, then I'm just going to double him around and disengage. You know, I always say we got to quit babysitting at some point, you know. Yeah, I could hold him on the circle I want, but he's still leaving, you know. If I've got to be there, he's still leaving, right? But can I drop my hand and totally leave him alone and he still goes where I want him to? You know, as you know, the truth always shows up when you turn loose. So if you want to know the truth, turn loose, you know, and then good luck. But until he can go where I want him to without me being there, what I'm going to do is overcompensate the places that he leans. Like if he wants to go left, I'm going to go right. If he wants to go right, I'm going to go left. If he wants to lean over there, I'm going to cut the circle off. I'm going to create an opposite anticipation, all right? Because when he leans toward the barn or he wants to leave that circle, that's not a physical problem. That's a mental problem. His brain left and he's taken his feet with it, all right? So I've got to get his brain to think something else. And so I just take his brain and put it over here instead of over there. And then all of a sudden he goes through here and with repetition, he's learned when I get to there, come this way, all right? Now all of a sudden he makes that decision to not lean there. He wants to come here instead. And then you just clean it up.
So one of my biggest takeaways, which it never ceases to come back to me. It's like peeling like layers of an onion. So I teach this as much or more than anybody about giving a horse responsibility. But then every time I ride with Craig, he just shows me another way, more examples of how to give a horse responsibility. And one of the ones that I took away from this one was not only being able to ride the horse with your legs off and have that horse maintaining forward movement, but another one was the way he was using his reins. He wasn't like picking up contact and just holding it the whole time. He would pick it up and right away release it and expect that horse to maintain some levels of carriage. So he's starting to build that into the horse, where for me, a lot of times I would wait more towards the end of their development before I start working on self-carriage, is what I would call it, where a horse is just holding themselves in a frame. He's starting to pepper that in as he goes right now. And that's definitely something a tool that I can add to my toolbox and help my other horses get better as well.
Remember I said that in everything I do, there's an approach. So for example, I'm getting ready to go to the right. I'm going to set the position first, then go to the right. Now I'm getting ready to go left, set position first, then go left. What a lot of people will do incorrectly is when they go to change position or change directions, or go from a circle to a straight line or to a different circle, or just steer around, they'll make the steer and then try to correct the horse for the mistake they made. Well, I set it up first and then go make a good move, and then the horse gets kind of a positive attitude, because I, as a driver, like driving a car down the road, I know there's a curve ahead. There was a sign that said so, So I start to slow the car down. I get ready for the curve, I get them in a position, then make the move, and that way they learn a positive way, because what I want in the end is this thing called duck on the water. And duck on the water means that everything I want a horse to do is under the water, just like a duck going across the pond. You know, if you look at the duck, you see nothing moving, but if you look under the water, the feet are going like crazy. So the steering, speeding up, slowing down, stop and turn should all be under the water with their feet. Everything else above water, which is about where my boots are, nothing should happen there. Neck stays there, chin stays there. And like there. He left with his neck soft, chin soft. I think that every correction that I would use, whether it's a steer with the outside rein, take hold with my hands, change something, make a transition or something changes, that needs, I've only got about 1 or 2 seconds for that to work, all right? But what I try to do is teach them how to respond correctly in that 1 or 2 seconds and then leave them alone and let them fill in the blanks until it's time for me to do something else, and then leave them alone and let them continually fill in the blanks till they can fill it in further and a little more and a little more, right? But I've got to put the tools in so that when I ask for something in that 1 or 2 seconds, it happens, you know? So we go through the drills and the program showing them how to get off the leg, how to get off the foot, how to do those things correctly and respond now. And I think, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a correction. What I view a correction as, though, is a maneuver or a move made on purpose that they already know, right? So if I'm going to use this leg, let's call it a correction, if I'm going to lay that leg right there and that's a correction, I have to first teach him what to do when I lay that leg there, and then he understands, right? Because I think a horse only has 1 or 2 seconds to understand what it was I was after anyway. After that, it's gone, because if, you know, and I used to do it all the time, I can always raise my hand, I've made mistakes. But, you know, I'd go to correct a horse, but the tool wasn't in there, and so they resisted the correction, and now I've got to end up correcting the correction, and the original point is gone, you know? Yeah. So they go through all these body control maneuvers and steering and speeding up and slowing down, and we get that timing right, where when I lay the leg, they move over now, and I pick up my hand, they give their chin now, and they, you know, so that then I can make that adjustment, because all I'm trying to get them to do is a different maneuver that they already know instead of the one they're doing. I'm just trying to change their mind into something else that they already know.
I very much get the responsiveness, and that's kind of a thing with him. Like, that's his personality. He's, you know, he tends to be kind of dull and lazy, and then it's kind of like it's your job to find resistance, because if you're not finding resistance, you're not challenging them enough to get them better, right? But was there anything that you felt riding him that you're like, you wish I hadn't done that, or something maybe that you felt like I put in there, or that shouldn't have been doing, or wished I would have put more emphasis on something else?
I appreciate you asking that, because, and I don't know the history of him, how long you've had him, and you know what all you did, what he was doing before that. You know, who knows? You know, I think horses are a product of, you know, I call them a yesterday animal. They only know what they learned from all the yesterdays that add up to right now. He doesn't even know there is a tomorrow. You know, I figure what I show him today is probably the results will be tomorrow, you know, for the most part. But I've got to add in more yesterdays, you know, and so that now he knows this. Yeah. Now, that said, is there anything you did? The one thing I felt like on this horse, to me, he is, and whether it's his tendency or whether it was created, he is overly desensitized. You know, went too far in causing him to be nice to be, or friendly to be around, which then in turn, in my opinion, made him a little pushy. Yeah. I think that a lot of times when you take away too much flight response, then you end up having a horse that won't go anywhere. Now, if that's what you want, that's great. But a lot of the maneuvers that we make in, whether it's the reining or the cow horse, it's borderline a flight response, you know? When they run down there and stop and then crack and get out of there in a rollback or something, that's pushing a flight response, you know? So I think, you know, there's that delicate balance of, yes, you want them to be usable. But so there's the two extremes. This horse that you can't even lay a leg on, he's going to learn I can lay the leg and I can ride around with my legs on and just get used to it, desensitizing. But then there's the other extreme where the horse could care less whether your legs are on or not. You know, and then you sit there begging the horse to go. But that said, what I am trying to build within, you know, the competitive reiner, ranch horse, you know, whatever the case might be, is a horse that has more whoa than go, but a delicate balance of that.
Yeah.
You know, 60% whoa, 40% go, which means, yeah, I've got to start the motor. I've got to get it going, all right? He's not just leaving all the time, all right? But that horse at 60% whoa is pretty easy to stop too, you know? The get there is my idea, the stop should be his, you know, which means his brakes are wired the whole way down through there, you know, just waiting for me to give him the cue. To answer your question, I don't know if I did or not, but, you know, he just felt like maybe he was a little overly desensitized.
Yeah.
And I can't say you did it, but somebody did. Or maybe it's just him.
So I was actually really happy with Craig's answer to this question because I know that innately this horse is very sticky and has a pretty strong stubborn streak and is committed to his idea. So that didn't surprise me at all. I think that is more this horse's personality and maybe a little bit how he got started. I was more interested if there was something I was doing wrong with some of the exercises that I'd been doing with him or maneuvers, if he didn't like kind of how any of those felt, and those were all checked out, we're good to go. So I was really happy to hear that. But thank you very much, Craig, for showing them to me and showing what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.
Can't wait to see how he keeps going.
Yeah, good deal. Well, the thing I'd like to present at the symposium is, how to read your horse and recognize whether he's putting forth some effort or not. And, how to get the effort but do it correctly, without scaring your horse and without, creating more problems. But also understanding that, there's certain things that we are going to do as we ride that are just going to come as instinct. It's going to come naturally. And I think this horse needs to, all horses need to get used to the things I'm going to naturally do. I believe in natural horsemanship. But there's certain things I'm going to naturally do. Yeah. Get used to it, And so we're going to talk a lot about that and, how to make those things work.
So yeah, we have a great opportunity to come see Craig Johnson at the Horseman Symposium. He's going to be presenting both days. He's going to work with some riders that are getting started, and he's going to work with some advanced riders. Also, there's an opportunity for 6 of you to ride with him that weekend. So if you guys are interested in doing that, I'll leave a link below for the form that you need to fill out. You do have to have a ticket to the symposium to be there, and we hope to see you guys all there. We got about 50 tickets left, and it's a great opportunity, so come check it out. So I just want to say a big thank you to Craig Johnson. I've just learned so much from him over the years. He's been a great mentor of mine, and his willingness to take my horse in for training is a gift because he doesn't have to, and he takes in a very limited number of horses these days. And so I was just super happy to be able to have a door open to me. And I just want to say a big thank you to Craig for having me there.
Yeah.
So we can't wait to have Craig at the 2026. Oh, geez. My brain is not on this right now. Yeah,
one or the other.
All right. Well, looks like I got a video editor. She can fix all my mistakes.